With amazing results in this year's Civil Services examination, Study IQ has once again proved that quality can be provided along with affordability. हमारे P2I यानी Prelims to Interview 2025 लाइव बैच में you will get 1000+ hours की लाइव क्लासेस, 1-to-1 mentorship, daily answer writing practice, success in Prelims crash course, 18 books covering all GS subjects, interview guidance program, and the most important, mains residential program where all prelims cleared students will be called to Study IQ campus in Delhi at no additional cost. Batches English, Hindi और English तीनों में available हैं. For any query, call 079-7142-0466. Scan QR code to join now.
Study IQ IAS. अब तैयारी हुई affordable.
Hi everybody, this is Bhuvaneshram. I have been fortunate to secure All India rank 41 in a UPSC Civil Services examination 2023. So in this video, we'll be seeing the strategy and approach to Prelims examination, which is the first level of UPSC Civil Services examination. So before that, I'll just like to give a brief background about myself. I studied a BSc Physics Honours from Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning in Bengaluru. And after that, I have started preparation right away. And this is my 6th prelims and 4th interview and 3rd selection as well. So it has been a long journey. And coming to prelims as such, I have cleared, as I said, 4 prelims out of the 6 which I gave. So I do think that I have some good learnings from this process in respect of prelims, and I would like to share my 2 cents about prelims. So broadly speaking, when we try to structure the examination process, generally people start 1 year before the prelims date. So I would suggest that we first finish the first reading of the syllabus, perhaps covering all the basic subjects like history, geography, polity, economics, science and tech, etc. I don't want to go too much deeper into the sources as such, because I believe there is so much information on that, partly, and I also believe that content preparation and sources preparation is just one part of it when prelims is concerned. The major part of it is how to attempt the paper. The exam taking skills form 50 to 60% of success in prelim stage. So I would like to focus more on that part as well. So as I was saying, when we structure the preparation process, we would first like to finish the first reading of the sources, perhaps within the first 6 months. Suppose we start in June, within December or Jan, let's say, we should be able to finish the first reading of all the sources. A good formula would be that we cover basic NCERTs for each subject plus 1 complementary book. Like I said, I don't want to go too much into the sources. So let's directly go into the next part. So the next part is where you start taking regular mock tests from, say, let's say December to Jan till the end of the next 6 months, which is till May or June, when your actual prelims is coming. So this is broadly how you structure the prelims preparation. Of course, it may vary from individual to individual. Some may like to integrate mains topics and answer writing as such, but it is just a general idea is that you first cover the basic sources, do a proper first reading, take notes if that's your style, and then focus entirely on revision and taking tests. So the more tests you take and the more revision you do, the better prepared you will be for prelims. So that is the first basic thumb rule for prelims preparation. And one major aspect on which a lot of confusion is there is current affairs preparation. So what I used to do is, my major source of current affairs was my own personal compilation. Especially for prelims angle, where there is a lot of questions which tests our memory, I feel having our own compilation helps. We should ensure that the compilation is very crisp, very to the point, and it should be divided thematically. So for example, I maintain Evernote app in which I take my current affairs notes. So I do read Hindu newspaper regularly, and from this I do take down whichever is important for prelims in my perspective. For example, let's say there is a species in news which has been newly discovered in Western Ghats, for example. So you take down the name of the species, perhaps the IUCN status, and any unique features of the species. So it should be very, very crisp. When you have your own personal compilation, which you take from primary sources like newspaper, which can be supplemented with other sources, I think the personal compilation is what is most helpful. After that comes the government sources. So it is a good approach to follow government sources like PIB and Sunset TV, which is the YouTube channel of the government itself. So these two sources are very valuable in terms of new schemes, new policies, insights about new policies, etc. So also I would like to emphasize that this note taking aspect is more relevant for prelims than for mains, because for mains it is about giving your analysis, giving your insights, showing your analytical and writing skills there. The form is more important or perhaps as important as the content there. But for prelims, where there is a lot of memory testing, a lot of testing of facts, your memory will be put to test a lot in prelims than in mains. So in that perspective, I do feel note taking is very, very important for prelims. So have your own personal compilation, which is based out of, like I said, first newspaper, second government sources. Apart from that, you can have one more supplementary app. Let's say like I use Indian Express and I keep visiting the explained section of Indian Express. I feel it is very simplified and very comprehensive, and it can act as a good supplementary source for all your other sources also. So from that you can take down notes, and of course as you take tests, you will see many new current affairs in your answer keys. You can keep adding them to your compilation. And coming to current affairs monthly compilation, I did take the compilations for one attempt, but I did feel that the cost benefit analysis, the cost benefit ratio is very poor for monthly compilations. So if you do feel that it is helpful for you and if you can find time for it, well and good, but I would say that do a cost benefit approach analysis before you blindly believe monthly compilations. Whereas other thematic compilations like PT 365 is very good. So in the last minute you can go through various thematic compilations, which again will supplement your personal compilation. So in the last 1 or 2 weeks or so, you will have to rely on only your personal compilation. That's how good your personal compilation should be. So I think covering these sources is good enough for current affairs preparation. So coming to prelims as such, I think it is important to understand the nature of the examination. So I would like to tell that there are two types of ways in which our memories work. I keep talking about this wherever I go. It's important to understand this because the way these two levels of the examination are structured is directly relevant to these two kinds of ways how our memories work. So for example, our memories work in two different ways, which is recognition and recollection. So in recognition, the answer is already in front of us. You just have to recognize which is the correct answer. But in recollection, it involves active sourcing of information from your memory. It involves active mapping of information to various related sets of information. So as you can see, prelims is about recognition and mains is about recollection. So for example, when we go to prelims, we try to actually recollect facts and we feel very less confident, right? It feels as if we have not studied anything because we try to recollect facts for a level of examination that is dependent on recognition. So when we understand this, we realize the importance of revision and keeping a recognition intuition active. So how do we keep this recognition intuition active? We have to do a lot of revision, of course. We have to have ready-made reference notes for each subject. For example, for polity, I had ready-made tables for constitutional authorities, non-constitutional authorities. So another interesting aspect about prelims is that I feel at prelim stage is where the uncertainty in this examination is the highest. So there are interesting experiments in psychology that shows that humans generally tend to have this uncertainty avoidance. We are very, very uncomfortable with uncertainty. And perhaps this is the reason why our anxiety is also somewhat high during the prelim stage, because there is a general sense of loss of control. We don't know what kind of questions it's going to come. We don't know which subjects the questions are going to be high. And especially after last prelims in 23, where the pattern of examination underwent a drastic change, we don't know what googlies UPSC can throw, right? So we must recognize that uncertainty is a built-in feature of prelims and we must get used to this uncertainty. And how do we get used to it? Perhaps by giving a lot of mock tests, like I was saying. Giving 45 to 50 mock tests before the actual prelims is a very good practice. So give a lot of mock tests. I keep emphasizing on this. Another thing is that we have to understand how prelims actually operates, right? So as any person who cleared the prelims would tell you, prelims operates in a zone of probabilities. There is no sure shot certainty in this examination. So what do I mean by that? Generally, in GS1, the GS1 paper in prelims, there are 100 questions, right? So generally we may know perhaps 30 to 40 questions or 45 questions max, which can be directly attributed to sources that you read, means which are easily answerable, which are directly answerable. So that is one kind of questions. The other kind of questions is where you can eliminate two options and you will be confused between two options, right? So this is the second most prominent category of questions, and the third category is where you will have to do informed guessing, because you have very little idea or you can just eliminate one option. So what typically we do is we take the examination in rounds. In first round we attempt the questions we know for sure, and this is where our success rate is at the highest. So we must ensure that the probability of getting the correct answer here is close to 90 to 100%. So if 40 questions you attend, 36 plus questions have to be right in this stage. That is where it builds the base of your score. So let's say you take 45 questions in this first round and you attempt 40 questions correctly. Directly you are getting 80 marks in this round, right? So you are almost close to the cutoff then and there, if you don't compromise on the basics questions properly in the first category of questions. In the second category of questions, again here we may have to attend another 30 to 35 questions. I am oversimplifying it here just to illustrate, but the point is that the first kind of questions is where our control is the highest, and the second kind of questions is where our control is lesser and our uncertainty is highest. And this is the reason why we feel a loss of control over prelims. And it is in this second round of questions where all these techniques will come in. Extrapolation, elimination, using your common sense, using basic English to attempt these kind of questions. And the third kind of questions, again you will have to use these techniques, but perhaps the error rate is highest in the third round, right? Because you couldn't eliminate many options. So as we saw, the first round the error rate, the success rate is 90 to 100%. The second round it is on an average 50% because you have to choose between two options, and the third round the error rate is, let's say, 25%. So what we have to do is maximize our success in this first round, meaning you cannot afford to get basic questions wrong. So in the example I was citing, if you attempt 40 questions right in the first category of questions, you will be directly in the 80 marks category, right? And the second and third category of questions, you just have to ensure that you use these techniques correctly to get a net positive mark, so that the net positive adds on the first 80 and you are well above the cutoff. So it is a oversimplified kind of an explanation, but I am just trying to explain that this uncertainty is built in, and you can broadly divide the kind of questions that you want to attempt in prelims. So that is why while some people may not undertake this round wise approach, a lot of people take, including me, this round wise approach, and I think it helps because you know what kind of questions to attempt most in that sense. And another important aspect I want to emphasize is that you have to do error analysis. In the mock test that you take, you have to understand in which subjects the errors are highest. So for example, in my case, for me, I felt that in history I had the maximum number of errors when I took tests, right? So I focused more on those subjects, and in fact what you attend in the prelims is as important as what you leave in the examination. So I generally try to attempt in the golden range of 85 to 90. There is nothing golden about it. You can attempt 60 to 70 questions and still clear the examination. But I try to ensure that what questions I leave out, the 10 to 15, are mostly from art and culture or medieval, because that is where I feel my error rate is the highest. So I want to reduce the negatives as much as possible. So please understand that in prelim stage, analyzing the negatives is more important than analyzing the positives. Keep going back to your negatives, understand what kind of subjects the negatives are highest, understand what kind of mistakes is contributing to more negatives. Is it avoidable mistake, like careless mistake? Is it a non-avoidable mistake? Is it because you are guessing perhaps in a free manner without any informed guessing, right? So error analysis is a very, very important aspect of prelims. So coming to this mock test, we have to understand that we have to take offline mock tests as much as possible. So now that the online learning module is prevalent in a lot of institutes, people generally take a lot of mock tests in computers, right? And I think that may not help, because in the ultimate prelims you will be taking offline mock tests. So Get used to this OMR sheet kind of an environment because the shading itself takes a lot of time. Even there we tend to make mistakes. I know friends who have missed a question and marked against the wrong question number, and that costs their marks. Like I said, prelims is where the filtering rate is the highest. If 10 lakh candidates take prelims and only 10,000 odd clear, almost 100:1 is the clearing ratio, right? But mains to interview is like 10:1. 10,000 to 2,000 people go to interview, and again roughly 2:1 is in the rank list from interview base. So the filtering rate being the highest in prelims, we have to be that much more careful in avoiding the avoidable mistakes. So always control the controllables, right? So now I think I have spoken about broadly the philosophies and the kind of principles that drive the prelim stage of examination. I would like to quote some examples from last year prelims as well as some made up examples to illustrate how do we go about questions that we don't know directly, rather the second kind of questions. So I would like to tell some examples from last year prelims. Let's take one question. So this question from geography was in last year's prelims, 2023 prelims. The question is ilmenite and rutile. These ores or these sources is the source of which mineral, right? And the options are aluminum, copper, iron and titanium. So you may not have come across these terms, ilmenite and rutile. At least it was for me when I attempted the question. I am just telling my approach. The terms didn't seem familiar to me. So now what do we do? Now people say elimination is itself eliminated and it is out of vogue. We cannot eliminate anymore. But I do feel in such kind of questions elimination works. So I try to see whether I know at least some sources or some ores for other options. So for example, for iron we know that hematite and magnetite are the major sources for this mineral. So directly it will be out. And aluminum as an option is there. We know that bauxite is the major source of aluminum, so that is also out. Now you will have to choose between copper and titanium. So my thinking was that for copper I remembered that there were no fancy terms, or I remember some term starting with C as the major source of major ore for the mineral. So I thought that now that we have eliminated, titanium must be the correct option, and it seemed to be the correct option when we check the answer key. So here we saw that though directly you didn't study about the question, directly you couldn't answer the question from what you studied, you used all the sources, all the knowledge that you studied from basic sources like hematite and magnetite, we study from NCERTs, right? Using this itself, you approach the question using strategies like elimination and you answer the question, right? Let's take another example. So there was one question that went like this. Consider the following statements. Some mushrooms have medicinal properties. Some mushrooms are psychoactive. Some mushrooms are insecticides. Some mushrooms are bioluminescent. So now we will have to choose which of the above are correct or wrong. Only 1, only 2, only 3 or all 4. Correct. Which of the above are correct. So in questions like this, especially in science and technology, using basic English and common sense we can easily answer, right? So for any of these sentences to be wrong, you have to be absolutely sure that no mushroom is like that. So to eliminate the bioluminescent statement, for example, you will have to be absolutely sure that no mushroom is bioluminescent. So it is very tough, right? In fact, in science and technology especially, all of the above is a very good option because almost any given application you will find a research paper. So it is very tough to eliminate it. So in this question, using basic sense and common sense and English, you can find that all of the above would be a correct answer, and in fact it is the correct answer. That's how I answered this question. So we can see that just keeping our minds calm, composed and using common sense, we can answer such questions. Now I will give you one more made up examples which I was discussing with my friend to illustrate another approach. So under G20 presidency which we had recently, there was something called Chennai principles which was agreed upon. So let's say there was a question which goes like, Chennai principles under G20 presidency is related to which of the following? MSMEs, culture, ocean technology and higher education, let's say. You have to choose the correct answer from this. Now let's assume you didn't read the current affair. You don't know what this is, obviously, right? Again you will have to use all the resources at your disposal to answer this question. Now how do we go about thinking this question? See, when it is a good approach to think like these summits, G20 summits which were held in different cities, the topics that were discussed in these cities must have some relation with the city, correct? So maybe culture has a good relation with Chennai, perhaps that could be an answer. Perhaps blue technology could be an answer. Perhaps MSME is not so much as a relation with Chennai, because MSME is a general phenomenon, right? Though MSMEs, Tamil Nadu has one of the highest number of MSMEs, that is different. So when we try to integrate what we read in other sources, we can also try to think like National Institute of Ocean Technology is in Chennai. It comes under CSIR. So if we know this fact, we can try to attempt an informed guess in this question. So the correct answer is in fact blue technology, ocean technology, because perhaps NIOT was the nodal agency in conducting these meetings. So again, I am trying to explain that all that you read perhaps in current affairs compilation, as you keep assimilating into your brain, right? As a student of psychology, I can tell about something called spreading activation. Whatever you read, it is stored in your long-term memory as notes. So these nodes, they are related to each other as a network, right? So when there is an activation of one node, the related nodes are also activated, and that's how, in fact, right now, if I am speaking fluently, the related nodes of my concepts that I should speak about prelims, it is getting activated, so I am able to speak fluently. So when you think about Chennai, perhaps this National Institute of Ocean Technology, that node also will be activated in your brain. And you can use this assimilation approach also to answer questions. So I am just trying to illustrate that using all the resources at your disposal, using elimination, using basic sense, using extrapolation, using inferences, you can make informed guesses. And this is how you take your success rate higher in the second kind of questions. The first kind, definitely get 100% success rate. It builds your foundation for your marks. The second kind of questions is where you use all these techniques, reduce your error rate, increase your success rate, get a very good positive, lesser negative net marks, so that when you add these two kind of marks, it is well above the cutoff. It is all prelims is about. So this is about my strategy in prelims as such. I think I try to be I try to go as micro level as possible to try and illustrate how those who clear prelims think. So like I said, only 50 to 60% is about reading and covering syllabus and all that. 40% is about how many mock tests you take, how you develop your test taking skills, how time management you can develop, and how you can use your thinking and play with the zone of probabilities to turn that in your favor and clear the examination. So this is all about my prelim strategy. Thank you so much.